Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. So great to be here with you tonight to talk about the only thing in the world that will get us everything that we want. The only thing that we can find within this universe that will teach us exactly what we need to know, how to achieve the highest amount of happiness possible and freedom from suffering forever. So it's because of that that I'm very excited to be able to talk to you about this. And by talking to you about it, it familiarizes my own mind with it more and more and more, and allows me to then create the causes of the thing that I want, just like all of you. And that's to be free from suffering forever and to experience the highest amount of happiness possible. So to set our motivations, to kind of put our minds around the path and the three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, those three paths that it's just not negotiable. We have to realize these things if we want to become a Buddha. And we want to become a Buddha because we all want to be free from suffering and want to have the highest amount of happiness possible. And the only being in the universe that has that, whilst being the most reliable guide in the universe and having the perfect love, compassion, and power to really guide, that kind of person no longer has to have any of the things that I have to have all of the time. So we're going to set our motivation tonight, knowing that we have to generate all of these things within our minds. There's nothing that the Buddhas did differently in terms of how they got to their goals. So we recognize that. And let's read these verses from Lama Tsongkhapa's Three Principal Paths to kind of guide us in our setting our proper motivation to be able to call all sentient beings here to be our guest, to engage in this practice along with us, to be able to hear this teaching for beings of three capacities, which we know when we get to the great scope. We've found many of the three kind of principal paths already contained within the small and medium scope. And then we arrive at the kind of principal path of bodhicitta when we get to the great scope, and we see how all of these things are kind of contained within each other. And that's why the teachings are called the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity that are shared in common with the great scope, because we know that we need all of those things contained in those kind of lower fundamental practices, foundational practices, in order to realize the higher practices. So let's look at the kind of path in terms of how we would realize it and the things that would be necessary for us to realize in our minds in order for us to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And the goals that we want to achieve, again, are the highest amount of happiness possible and a complete freedom from suffering that, never ends. So the Buddhahood would be a state where we would never have suffering again, and we would always have the highest amount of happiness, and we would always be the most reliable guide in the universe, and we would always have all of our needs and all sentient beings' needs fulfilled, from the point of becoming a Buddha, where the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience are removed forever. So this is the amazing, incredible point that we can say about this. Is that going through your headphones? Because I may not be talking. Okay, it's not? Okay, good. Just wanted to check on that because I could hear it playing somewhere. It was kind of throwing me off. So this is the three principal aspects of the path by Lama Tsongkhapa. And this has been translated by, again, Nenden Jambal Professor Jeffrey Hopkins. Homage to the foremost lamas. I will explain as well as I can the essential meaning of the Conqueror's scriptures, the path praised by the excellent Conqueror's children, the port for the fortunate wishing liberation. Whoever are not attached to the pleasures of mundane existence, whoever strive in order to make leisure and fortune worthwhile, whoever are inclined to the path pleasing to the Conqueror Buddha, those fortunate ones should listen with a clear mind. Without a complete thought definitely to leave cyclic existence, there is no way to stop seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of existence. Also, craving cyclic existence thoroughly binds the embodied. Therefore, in the beginning, determination to leave cyclic existence should be sought. Leisure and fortune are difficult to find, and life has no duration. Through familiarity with this, emphasis on the appearances of this life is reversed. If you think again and again about deeds and their inevitable effects and the sufferings of cyclic existence, the emphasis on the appearances of future lives will be reversed. If, having meditated thus, you do not generate admiration even for an instant for the prosperity of cyclic existence, and if an attitude seeking liberation arises day and night, then the thought definitely to leave cyclic existence has been generated. Also, if this thought definitely to leave cyclic existence is not conjoined with the generation of a complete aspiration to highest enlightenment, it does not become a cause of the marvelous bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Thus, the intelligence should generate the supreme altruistic intention to become enlightened. All beings are carried by the continuum of the four powerful currents, are tied with the tight bonds of actions difficult to oppose, have entered into the iron cage of apprehending self, inherent existence, are completely beclouded with the thick darkness of ignorance, are born into cyclic existence limitlessly, and their births are tortured ceaselessly by the three sufferings. Thinking thus of the condition of my mothers who have come to such a state, generate the supreme altruistic intention to become enlightened. If you do not have the wisdom realizing the way things are, even though you have developed the thought definitely to leave cyclic existence and the altruistic intention, the root of cyclic existence cannot be cut. Therefore, work at the means of realizing dependent arising. Whoever, seeing the cause and effect of all phenomena, of cyclic existence and nirvana as infallible, thoroughly destroys the mode of misapprehension of those objects as inherently existent, has entered on a path that pleases the Buddha. As long as the two, realization of appearances, the infallibility of dependent arising, and the realization of emptiness, the non-assertion of inherent existence, seem to be separate, there is still no realization of the thought of Shakyamuni Buddha. When the two realizations exist simultaneously without alteration, and when from
Jeff, I can't hear you.
Oh, it muted me when we lost our connection, it muted me.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
You can hear me now?
Yes, thanks, Karen, for that.
Yes,
too.
sure.
Okay,
I
we
thought it was just
appreciate
me,
it.
so I had to wait before I said anything.
The universe does not want to hear Lama Tsongkhapa. It's all of our collective karmas grasping at true collective karma coming together and appearing in such a way that's keeping us from hearing Lama Tsongkhapa. I'm just joking. Hey, we're back. Thank you, everybody. Let's read this again. I will not be stopped. As long as the two, realization of appearances, the infallibility of dependent arising, and the realization of emptiness, the non-assertion of inherent existence, seems to be separate, there is still no realization of the thought of Buddha Shakyamuni. When the two realizations exist simultaneously without alteration, and when from only seeing dependent arising as infallible, definite knowledge entirely destroys the mode of apprehension of the conception of inherent existence, then the analysis of the view of reality is complete. Further, the extreme of inherent existence is excluded by the knowledge of the nature of appearances, existing only as imputed labels, nominal designations, as the extreme of total non-existence is excluded by the knowledge of the nature of emptiness, as the absence of inherent existence and not the absence of nominal existence. Some of this is in parentheses, just added for more understanding by Professor Hopkins. If within emptiness the appearance of cause and effect is known, you will not be captivated by extreme views. When you have realized thus, just as they are, the essentials of the three principal aspects of the path, resort to solitude and generate the power of effort. Accomplish quickly your final aim, my child. And you feel the very tender moment with Lama Tsongkhapa saying, my child, as soon as you've realized this, and we can look at these incredible beings as our spiritual family, as our spiritual guides, like they're our parents, our spiritual parents who guide us and tell us all the things that we need to know in order to truly achieve what we've been trying to achieve since beginningless time and never been able to achieve, because we've been going about it the wrong way over and over and over again, because we've been going at it from the standpoint of someone who's grasping at things as being inherently existent. And from that standpoint, where I start from there, I'm starting from a wrong idea. I'm starting from an idea that I believe something that doesn't exist exists. And it's in dependence upon this mass misapprehension of things that I then have an inappropriate attention that tells me that, oh, well, that thing that inherently exists over there is pleasant. That thing that inherently exists over there is unpleasant. I have an inappropriate conceptuality that takes place in dependence upon this conceptual idea that I inherently exist. It's something that is an ignorance that's embedded in all of the ways of my being, the ways that I experience things sent from a sense perspective and from a mental perspective. Any way that we look at it, there's a misperception going on from my starting point of every moment of my day. So every moment, it's not like it's a starting point. It's all kind of going together, right? But if we look at really quickly, what's going on is I'm discriminating. I'm coming in contact and paying attention to things, and I'm believing that myself, the object possessor, and all of the objects around me possess a nature that they don't possess. And it's in dependence upon this misapprehension of a nature that doesn't exist that I then screw everything up from there. And I say that I like this, I don't like this. And as soon as I have a feeling that something makes that a feeling of pleasantness in relation to objects, in relation to people, then I start to really turn on my attachment and try to pull those objects closer to me in a way that then makes me react in all sorts of bizarre ways. And I do the same thing about things that I feel are unpleasant, and I push them away. I have aversion for them, and I behave in all sorts of weird ways in order to keep it away from me. And I behave in weird ways in things that I don't like to keep away from me. And I behave in all kinds of weird ways in order to get the things that I'm attached to. And both of these states that I give these objects aren't real because I've made them up. I've made a decision that that thing over there is the thing that I should be attached to. And you've made the decision that the thing over there you should hate. And then we both acted weird in different ways. And that weird acting keeps us in cyclic existence. It's called karma. It's called contaminated karma. Contaminated because it's under the influence of the afflictions that are really stupid. They're just concepts that we've created. And what are the afflictions? Things that make our minds disturbed. something that creates a disturbance in our mind. So we have to see what it is that we're doing to ourselves over and over again. And why are we doing this? Because we're starting from a premise that's wrong. So knowing this and knowing that most beings will never come into contact with this truth. Most beings will never even hear the idea that there is not an inherently existent self of person or phenomena. Most beings will never even like hear those words just fly by as if they were on a billboard on a highway and you drive by. But we have the opportunity to really saturate our minds with this truth and see whether it makes sense or not. Discover for ourselves whether what Buddha Shakyamuni said makes sense or not. We have this incredible opportunity because we have all of these teachers in our world. We have all of these books in our world. And there's so many beings who won't even have that flash of an understanding, won't even like see a car. We always joke around and say of sentient beings, we're trying to just leave imprints in the minds of sentient beings. Maybe we should wrap our cars in a Buddha so everybody just keeps seeing a Buddha. Like, you know, I mean, like how many people could you really affect like that? I mean, you think about like how many beings will ever just even have a Buddha flash by them or would even know what that even meant? Would even be able to come into a kind of an idea of what the Buddha came to tell us about the nature of contaminated causes giving contaminated results and how that relates to all the yucky ways that we feel. We're so fortunate that we have this stuff to discover for ourselves. And it isn't stuff that doesn't work because we've had these teachers that are like it says in the King of Prayers, lions amongst humans, who are so clearly different because they've been modified. They've had their hardware and software of their beings upgraded by these teachings. We just haven't done so yet. So we walk around worried. We walk around disturbed. We walk around with conceptions that make us believe everything externally is the problem. That we aren't creating all of this reality around us by our concepts. And this reality around us, we feel when we like it, we feel we made it happen. That's real easy for us to say, oh, wow, because of this awesome karma, I have all these awesome things in my life and I've met with all these awesome teachings. But we really don't want to say, I'm being disturbed right now by external factors because I play a role in it. We don't want to say that ever. We just want to stay on our own little mind's island and bifurcate. And it's that kind of starting point where I grasp at myself as being inherently existent, grasping at I and mine, that I'm off to the races because my premise is not correct. There's no inherently existent thing that is there, even though it naturally appears to be as such. Those not influenced by philosophy never even think about whether there's inherent existence or not inherent existence. There's just a naturally appearing I, person, phenomena. There's this natural appearance that just acts as more saltwater bait or reasons to feel bad. I mean, it really is something we never really look at. So recognizing that all these ordinary beings are carried, back to Lama Tsongkhapa's quote, that beings are carried by the continuums of the four powerful currents of birth, aging, sickness, and death, are tied with the tight bonds of actions difficult to oppose, have entered into the iron cage of apprehending self, inherent existence, are completely beclouded with thick darkness of ignorance. Like there's an iron cage, there's something over our ability to see the things way things are. There's something veiling it. There's something concealing it that we've never even considered was there. We've never considered that we aren't seeing things in the way that they actually are. We've always just taken things for the way that they are and assumed that we'll have ups and downs and that our minds are going to be disturbed and not disturbed at other times. And that's just the way minds work. But that's the way that beings' minds work who have the causes for disturbance. That's not the way beings' minds work that don't have the causes for disturbance. So those that are beclouded with the thick darkness of ignorance are born into cyclic existence limitlessly, and in their births are tortured ceaselessly by the three sufferings. What are the three sufferings? I hope you're all shouting them. The suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and the pervasive conditioned suffering, or pervasive composite or compounded suffering. A lot of different translations of that. Thinking thus of the condition of mothers who have come to such a state generate the supreme altruistic intention to become enlightened. So based upon all of the learnings that you've done about cyclic existence in the small and medium scope, based on all of that, think about how other sentient beings are enduring those awful sufferings, this 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings. Think about sentient beings who are in that state. And then with that idea of thinking of them and recognizing that the condition of our mothers, so we'll talk about this coming up, these beings who have all been our mothers are in this tortured state, generate the supreme altruistic intention to become enlightened. And in the Abhisama Alamkara, Lord Maitreya says, what is this bodhicitta? What is this kind of mind? It's this aspiration or wish to become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. It's a wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. The wish to remove all the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience for the sake of all sentient beings. Because once we remove all of the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience, this means we've gotten rid of all of the self-grasping ignorance and the stains of it. We've gotten rid of all the self-cherishing attitude and the subtle self-cherishing attitude that even hearers and solitary realizers, foe destroyers, still have. And that subtle self-cherishing attitude that foe destroyers still have causes the appearance of inherent existence to occur when they're not in meditative equipoise. They aren't able to view reality and diversity simultaneously, so they're inhibited. So we can see just how important generating this mind is. So thinking about sentient beings suffering, recognizing that they're caught in this iron net of darkness of ignorance, this iron cage apprehending things to inherently exist, thinking of sentient beings in the way that you've recognized that you're screwed up in, you've said, I definitely want to emerge from this. So this poem is assuming, because it's going from stage to stage, that you've said, I want to get out of cyclic existence. Day and night, I seek transcendent liberation. This poem's assuming that. Because if you haven't realized that, there's no way you can get bodhicitta. Without renunciation, bodhicitta is impossible. You can talk about bodhicitta, but without the ground of renunciation, the desire day and night to emerge from all six realms of cyclic existence, and not a fleeting desire, like I want to get out of here, like my house is on fire and I'm looking for a door. If your mind isn't turned towards the Dharma like that for yourself, you will never generate these next ideas of equanimity and generate these ideas of, that we find later on, because all of the realizations that you're going to need to have are found in the small and medium scope. You'll find out even tonight as we set up for equanimity, as we set up to try to realize sentient beings are our mothers and try to recognize that all beings are equally important when we try to combine the 7-point cause and effect of realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and equalizing and exchanging self with others. We come to these conclusions of equanimity and beings are equally important as I. And this is really, really something that's different than we've ever thought about. And we haven't even dreamt about this kind of thing about ourselves, usually. And we move on to areas where we're not ready to move on to, and we don't set ourselves up mentally with foundations that we actually need in order to achieve the things that we're trying to study prematurely or trying to engage in the meditation of prematurely. A lot of people will get into Tonglen prematurely, and they're not mentally prepared to engage in that process. And it will actually cause like a compassion fatigue, like people who get when they're doing, working, in very compassionate positions in healthcare and so forth. You can actually get this kind of mental problem from doing practices before you're ready to do practices. And this is why it's so important to start at the beginning of the Lam Rim and move to the next stage and to move to the next stage, not to be afraid of the later stages, but not to fool ourselves and try and stay in a later stage that we weren't ready to be in yet and actually not get anywhere with our minds. And you can talk with folks who practice dharmas for years and years and years, and the impact on their mind has really been minimal because of not doing it in a kind of graduated stages, because of this idea we have in the West of going to the top, being really doing it quickly and knowing the most and being able to show people how much the most we know. And the reality is that isn't always possible. So let's imagine that we bring all sentient beings here with this motivation, recognizing that all sentient beings are bereft of happiness. Anyone in cyclic existence is dissatisfied. Any being who is not a Buddha is dissatisfied. Even the bodhisattvas on the higher grounds are not satisfied because they have not removed the obstructions to omniscience. So we imagine that every single being in the universe that isn't satisfied, that has anything else to learn, that has anything else that they need in order to evolve on the path, comes here. And here is here to witness the teaching for the beings of three capacities. The teachings here in this case that we just read of the three principal aspects of the path of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. And we get to those realizations by the teachings for beings of three capacities. Teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, where we learn how to want to be free from the lower realms of cyclic existence and how to get a higher realm rebirth and how to set ourselves up in future lives in order to have the kind of basis that we would want to have, the kind of basis that we have now that meets with the Dharma. The teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, where we learn how to get out of cyclic existence altogether. We learn about the Four Noble Truths. We learn about the 12 links of dependent origination. And what we come to the conclusion of is that if we want to get out of cyclic existence, we have to practice the three highest higher trainings. And then we get to the teachings for beings of great capacity, and in dependence upon all of those things that we just mentioned, we'll be able to then set up a mind that generates bodhicitta. We'll have that basis. And then from there, we'll be on the actual Mahayana path. We'll actually have entered the door into the Mahayana path, which is the only door that gets you to Buddhahood in terms of a direct route. You will have to open that door to get to Buddhahood, no matter what byways or whatever you take to get to there. You have to become a bodhisattva to get to Buddhahood. So you open that door and then you're on the Mahayana path. It's the only entrance into the Mahayana. So we see how important all of these things are. And why are they important? Because they're all needed to become Buddhas. So when we enter the Mahayana, we have the perfection and the resultant vehicle, and none of which can be practiced without entering it. It wouldn't make any sense, right? To practice Tantrayana without having bodhicitta doesn't make sense, right? It can't. If you study, Mahayana has the two categories of the perfection and resultant vehicle, and you read about Tantra, and you read about entering mandalas, and you read about in the Tantras where it talks about needing to be a bodhisattva to look really at a mandala. We're kind of have to be honest with ourselves and know that we're getting the imprints, but try to practice at the level we're really at hard. Do the imprints, do the things, do the practices. Rinpoche said that Tantrayana is so rare we have it in our world, but don't fool yourself. Don't make it as your path of self-deception where you create another samsara and you don't have the basis for Tantra even to work. Tantra won't work if you don't have these minds that are the foundations. That's why Lama Tsongkhapa says, once I practice the path shared and become a vessel with that's worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond. Like it will be a result that will just be able to occur. It will be like just, walking from one room into another, from the perfection vehicle into the tantric vehicle. It won't be like you have to go to a different house. It's just, it's you have to see this kind of seamlessness, this integrated path. If, in my opinion, and in a lot of lamas' opinions, if you want to be able to achieve the results that everybody wants to achieve. So that being said, I think I've laid out this idea that we have something to offer everyone in the universe. So let's imagine that we share this thing with them. We bring all sentient beings in the universe here. And we always list the different realms when I talk about this, but we should, when we look at the teachings and how we think about our minds and how they work, we'll find out that we start with beings we actually know. So when we're, doing some of these practices, we don't start, way out there in another realm where there aren't beings that we can relate to. We start doing like a meditation where we were going to try to invite all sentient beings to be our guest and try to within that see if we can't learn a little bit about our minds when we do that. So the way we can learn about our minds when we do that, we could learn about our minds in terms of equanimity. uh, we could learn about our minds in terms of, just our relationship to all of these types of beings that we're going to say that we know, that we have relationships with, that are, when we develop compassion, great compassion has all beings as its object. So we can use this exercise of bringing all sentient beings here to be our guests to generate the refuge, the bodhicitta field, as an exercise to check our own mind, as I've said week after week, to see how we react, see how, okay, we invite all those beings who are our loved ones here. Okay, so Kamala Shila says you can start in this way. The equanimity meditation goes neutral, friends, enemies, and then the other parts of the 7-point cause and effect, it goes friends, neutrals, enemies. So we're going to start with friends. So you imagine you're inviting all of those loved ones here, everyone you feel close to, the closest person to you, your parents, your loved one, your wife, your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, your best friend, folks. You invite them all here and you see how your mind is scurrying. If you're thinking about what's really here, what's to offer. Some of them have heard of it, maybe the truth. Some of them have not heard about the truth, meaning that things don't inherently exist and that our conceptions bind us to suffering. Some have heard, some haven't. And you really would love, right? If you love these teachings, if you love and feel that these are keys to happiness, you love to bring those here. And I think that when you first get into Buddhism, you know what I'm talking about, because you want to tell even those that aren't really that excited about hearing about it in your family about, well, maybe I could be skillful means. The Buddha talks about skillful means. Maybe I can use this really skillful means to try to, entice these people in order to share this incredible knowledge I don't have with them. And it's really just our ego and our like, hey, I found this new band. Everyone should like this new band I love. It's kind of how we start out with our practice. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, most of us, that's how we start out. We become excited about it because it's a new thing, and then we want to share it with people. Then people aren't so receptive, and then we're like, man, all these poor ignorant people that aren't receptive. If only they knew what I knew. So this is long before we even have a clue on what the problem really is, but we have an inkling that there's a problem. So we see ourselves inviting all of these loved ones, and like even when we first get into it, God, I just wish all these people could really know about this, because I care about them and I want them to be free from suffering. And I've done some of this meditation, and I can't imagine if they could be burning in a fire. And some of the meditations that you do about the troubles of cyclic existence. And then, you move on to those strangers, those people you just kind of seen around, and, wow, if those strangers, that'd be great if they could have it too. There's less of an intensity maybe going on. I don't know. Maybe you're bodhisattvas, maybe you have an unbiased attitude. And then there's less of this intensity going on. And then you get to those that you find distasteful. Maybe those people on the TV, maybe those in a different political party, maybe those beings in history who have been really disgusting. Maybe your neighbor who is just really just not a kind person. whoever those people are, you know your own madness. You know your own mix of your conceptions twisting, an inherent existence into enemies. You know your madness, twisting something that doesn't exist into something that doesn't exist. Who are they? Well, bring them. See how your mind feels as you're bringing those beings here. Are you bringing them here because you're saying to yourself, if only they thought the way that I thought, then they could feel a lot better? Do you mean the way you think, like, oh, things don't inherently exist and I should have all beings are equally important? Is that what you mean? Like everyone's equally important. What everyone feels and thinks is equally important. I mean, that's a democracy, right? Really strange when we start to, I look at my own mind, how I react to the things that I see, and how I'm so quick when I'm doing my meditation to say, oh, let me bring them in so they start thinking like me. I'm thinking when I'm doing this practice, may I bring them in so they have the same chance at freedom that I have. Because everyone has Buddha nature. Everyone's equally important. So they have the same chance, not so that they get on my page. So they can discover what's out there to discover for every single sentient being, every mind possessor that has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience has a mind that's empty of inherent existence. It's empty of this dirt and isn't in the nature of it at all. Every single sentient being is just behaving in ways that afflictions make beings behave. And we're hearing it because we have karma and we have afflictions. And when you have those things, you hear things you don't like because you've created things to be able to be heard that are unpleasant because your mind's disturbed. And the more we bifurcate, the more we move away from an unbiased mental state, the more our mind is disturbed. So let's bring every single sentient being here, friends, neutrals. And neutrals here are strangers, people that you come in contact that you don't know. It's not, obviously, when we move to the hell hungry ghost animal, some of the animals, like I know the dogs. When you move on to those are really just all the other beings that you really don't, they are strangers. I understand that. But strangers, you're first working with those beings you don't really know, but you know they're around. So anyway, bring beings in that order. See how your mind works and reacts to it. See if there's a difference. See if you've just have an kind of impartiality. See if you're able to say, I'm equally willing. I have an equal feeling of wanting to benefit every one of those beings that I brought in. And if there isn't that equal feeling, in a way, it's really good because you've given yourself a chance to see that equal feeling's not there. And there's never been and never will be a being who became a bodhisattva with bias. And based on what I said earlier, if you don't become a bodhisattva, you can't become a Buddhist. So there's never been anybody with a biased attitude in the history of minds since the beginning of this time that's ever become a Buddha with a biased attitude. So we've got to work on this so hard and work on it with reasoning and analysis, not just wishful thinking, not, oh, everybody's equal and just leave it there. No, we've got to convince this deluded mind that it's true, that everybody is equally important. You put everybody you ever can think of in a room, you have to feel they're equally important and you'd equally be willing to benefit each and every one of them. Not that you'd want to put some of them, somewhere dark. Wow, these teachings are so beneficial because our minds don't feel good when we're having these biased feelings. Because when we're so attached, it's when when we're so averse, it's, ah. Don't we just want to feel good? And that's what the Buddhas came to tell us about, how to feel good. Not how to, sound the smartest, how to feel the best. So invite all sentient beings here to be your guests. And with this, I'll read the invitation and kind of aspiration from the King of Prayers. So you're inviting all sentient beings here. I'm inviting them all here and imagining that they can hear this teaching in their own individual languages, in their own individual aptitudes. In the language of gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. Now that all sentient beings are here as your guest, imagine that you've invited them here. Imagine that everyone gets into the 7-point Vairakana posture. The 7-point Vairakana posture we've gone over many times. It's a very important posture that helps us to be able to sustain our meditation for long periods of time. It allows our body to get into the most kind of best posture for our winds and channels to be aligned in the right way. Our blood flows in the right way. And it gives us the best possible kind of physical basis from which we can check if our mind's clear. It kind of puts our body into a physical stance, and we tell ourselves, okay, now I'm going to check my mind to see if it's prepared to kind of move forward with meditation, or is there something I need to adjust so I don't just sit excited or sit dull in such extreme coarse ways that I'm not able to kind of get the job done that I've set out to do by sitting down on a cushion. So the 7-point Vairakana posture is great to be able to utilize as your physical basis from which to then start. Everybody needs a starting point. You need somewhere to be able to start from. So, you open the room, you clean the room, you set up images of enlightenment, you put out offerings, and you get into this starting point, this posture that allows you from, a place from which to start to practice, to start to check your mind, to start to see, okay, is my mind ready to be told what to do? Because our mind never listens, as our mind ready to be told what to do. So we practice getting into this 7-point Vairakana posture, and it gives all of these excellent qualities in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa, drawing from sources of Asanga and so forth, talking about how this posture also inspires others. It gets you into the most conducive state physically, et cetera, et cetera. And it's something to look into that we've taught before many, many times. So now in this 7-point Vairakana posture, imagine that you're trying to get your mind as prepared as possible to hear this teaching. We know that the Lamrim teachings talk about being free from the 3 faults, the faults of the 3 pots that you hear over and over and over again. And that's because the great lamas of the past understood that if you don't hear the information properly, you won't have anything to analyze. If you don't have anything to analyze, to check into, you won't have anything then to decide is accurate and meditate on. So it's completely necessary for us to be able to hear this information accurately. And the way that we can hear this information accurately is to start, we get into the posture, we see if our mind's clear, we see, hey, is our mind ready to hear everything? Am I ready to listen? Are my ears open? Or am I like a pot that's overturned upside down that no water can be poured in, that no information can be poured in? Am I just so out there right now that I'm not ready to hear anything? Or am I totally open and ready to take in like a pot, perfect vessel that can take all the water in and contain it? Am I like that right now? Am I open or not? So this is the thing I'm checking my mind. Is my mind ready to receive this information? Whenever we're teaching, wherever we're there, we should be checking this, making sure that in each moment we're catching the information, catching that accurate information. We're seeing that with that kind of spy in our mind that we talk about when we're trying to get calm abiding, checking to see whether or not our mindfulness is, staying on the object. We're doing the same thing before the teaching. We're saying, okay, I'm here. What's going on? Am I being conscientious? Yes, I'm being conscientious. I want to make sure that I don't have any of the faults of the pots. Okay, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to maintain. What I'm going to do is try to hear this teaching thoroughly. That's my mindfulness. I don't want to forget that I want to hear everything that's coming at me so that I can have it in my mind. And now you have a spy. Is that what's going on? Are you starting to become like a pot that's upside down where you're not hearing anything? Or the next kind of pot, a pot that's got a hole in it. Are you kind of here? You know, if like I unmute all of you right now, am I going to hear something else? Are you kind of here or are you fully here? Because if you're kind of here, I probably won't say something you've never heard before, but what if I did? What if it was that one thing you needed to hear in order to become enlightened, in order to move to that next step on the path, and then boom, everything just starts flowing like water? What if that's the thing you miss? So this is why we're checking our mind. We're checking to see if, oh, wow, are things leaking out because I'm half here and half not here? Okay, so I've decided that I'm listening. That's okay. So I've got a pot that I can put something in. But if I have a pot with a hole in it, and if I'm listening, things are dripping out, dripping out, dripping out, dripping out, dripping out, dripping out, dripping out. I don't know how much will be left. It depends on how big your hole is in your pot. But it's not going to be everything that needs to be left if you needed a full container of water, if you needed a full container of wisdom. So it's for that reason that you check your mind to make sure that the mind's really on the teaching. And this is the same thing for meditation. This is the same thing you do when you walk down the street. I've told my mind that I'm not going to kill, I'm not going to steal, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to do all of these things. Am I actually engaging in what I've told my mind I'm supposed to be doing or not? This is what meditation is. It's not just sitting on a cushion. It's engaging in our whole life with a conscientiousness, mindfulness, and an introspection that allows us to put virtuous imprints in our mind every moment, as opposed to what we do now every moment. And that's just engage in conceptuality that's sprung out of self-grasping ignorance. So this is what our minds are so used to. This is what we do kind of day and night. So we want to make sure that we aren't doing what we always do that only gets us samsara when we're listening how to get out of samsara. We should probably pay attention, at least in this class, because it's talking about something that could actually matter. So are we listening to the whole thing or losing some of it? And then the last thing is our pot contaminated? Did we come in tonight and say, Jeff's talking about the non-biased attitude, but there's these 4 people I just hate. And I'm going to do this meditation. It's just, there's billions of people. There's only 4 I'm leaving out. But unfortunately, those 4 you leave out make it so you can never, ever become a Buddha. And that's high stakes. So if you can't get right with all sentient beings, you will never, ever experience what it is you want. So this is why this is true medicine. Are you coming in here with ideas that, oh, I've already heard so much of this stuff that, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then like I'm talking and you're going, yeah, it says that and that. Yeah, that. And your mind's, I see it sometimes in the Nalanda courses. You see the chat box going and people going, yeah, it says that in the da sutra. And Geshe-la said 10 things further in that you, I guarantee, just missed because of, oh yeah, I know about that, or I was checking that. Actually, I think it might be that and the other thing. The Lamrim teachings are meant to change our minds. That's what they're here for. So are you engaging in this in a way that's just like, okay, I'm here tonight in order to feel better. Tell me, what is it, doctor? You've just been diagnosed with a huge disease, and the only one with a cure in the world is sitting in front of you. This doctor, imagine. How would you listen? Would you be like, well, let me check my phone, I'm not really sure? Or would you listen intently and make sure that you heard everything that doctor said to save your life? These are the stakes. We've been ill since beginningless time. We look at things completely incorrectly. And the Buddha came to this world with a variety of medicine to be able to help us, to be able to eventually get to the point where we get rid of the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience, the same exact way that he did. We're so fortunate. Imagine that incredible being and all of the merit field begins to file in the space in front of us. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kensur Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, Namgyal Kensur Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Gompo Rinpoche, Demolocha Rinpoche. Imagine Kensur Lobsang Gyatso. All of any being that you consider a holy enlightened being, as I said, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Buddha Shakyamuni and the Buddha of compassion are right there in the space in front of you, looking into your eyes. Geshe Dorje Damdu Rinpoche, and imagining Lama Umzala Geshe Aga Rinpoche, Jeffrey Hopkins, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, any being you considered enlightened is in the space in front of you. Imagine the beings from the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and masters like Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Hari Bhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and holy beings such as Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha and Master Drontompa. Imagine the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Manjushri to Arya Nagarjuna and masters like Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Baba Vega and Chandarashita and Kamala Shila, Jnana Garbha, Lama Salimpa, Lord Atisha, Lord Master Drontompa, all of these holy beings we're so connected to, looking into our eyes with so much love and compassion, imagining the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Lord Vajradhara to the incredible masters like Saraha and Machipa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Jetsu Milarepa and Jagampopa. All those beings are in the space in front of you. Just feel the power, what it would be like if you could experience that all at the same time, all of those holy beings. Imagine that Master Drone Tompa, the incredible lay realized practitioner, is passing down the Lamrim lineage to the three old Kadampa lineages. Imagine all the holy beings of the Nyingma, Padmasambhava, Longchenpa, Mipam Rinpoche, imagining all the beings of the Sakya tradition, Sakya Pandita, Sakya Konganyimpo, Sakya Randawa. Imagine all the holy beings of the Kaju lineage, imagining the beings such as Jay Milarepa and Jay Gampopa, and all of the Karmapas, the holy beings of the Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtubje, Jelsubje, Basachuji Jetson, Panchen Sonandrapa, Janja Rupi Dorje, Goncha Jimmy Wampo, Pobajo, Jetsumba, the first Dalai Lama, the third Dalai Lama, the fifth Dalai Lama, the seventh Dalai Lama, 14th, all of these holy beings are in the space in front of you. All these beings we're so connected to and hear the teachings from their texts and passed down through our holy lamas, the beings of the highest yoga tantra, performance tantra, action tantra, all of the protector deities, all of the 35 Buddhas, all of the protector deities, all right here in the space in front of us as witnesses to this practice, looking into our eyes with immense loving kindness. We're making supplications to them to please bless us, to be able to intervene in our lives so that we can understand these teachings more clearly, so we can understand how things could possibly function, how things could possibly work in this world and simultaneously empty of inherent existence, how they could be just merely imputed and then function at the same time. How could this all be? How could this one entity be possible of functionality and emptiness of inherent existence? We supplicate these beings that we be able to understand all of these things so that then we can become the most reliable guides in the universe, so that we can then fulfill all of our needs and all of sentient beings' needs. With that being said, we'll read the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, which contains the key to our freedom from suffering. The self-grasping ignorance gives rise to all of the mess of cyclic existence. And if we can realize the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena while we're bodhisattvas, then we'll be able to eventually become Buddhas, because we have to have the realization of bodhicitta in order to become a Buddha. And if we're missing that realization of bodhicitta and we have the wisdom realizing emptiness, we would have gotten there only with renunciation, and we won't become a Buddha. So we have to make aspirations that not only will we see emptiness directly, but we'll see emptiness directly as a bodhisattva, so that we can develop what's called ultimate bodhicitta at this path while we're realizing emptiness directly. And then when we come out of it, we'll be on the path that we can go through all the way to the removal of the afflictive obstructions and then the obstructions to omniscience on the last pure grounds. So we make these aspirations that we'll be able to achieve these things that are contained within the Heart Sutra, and we make them along with all sentient beings. And we imagine that the merit field now is taking place in actual Vulture Peak Mountain. We imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is there, and all the holy beings are there, and Buddha Shakyamuni is blessing Chenrezig and Shariputra, and they're engaging in this conversation for our sake, engaging in this conversation to let us know that things don't inherently exist, even though 24/7, 7 days a week, they appear to, and you apprehend them as such. So I won't go into much detail about the Heart Sutra. I want to get into the readings tonight, so we'll just start here. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajaparamita fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way. Tiatom gate gate paragate parasangati bodhi soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Kalajubene Jogamane, Gujedu Jungai, Dudo, Jandru Baba Lama, Ibushenzi, Nizon Gandrozo, Laja Zelo, Agazamara Jazana, Zamara, Agazamara Jazana. Agasamara Jashadara Samara Yabedia, the Ongatigati, Paragati, Barsangati, Buddhiso, Papa Conchisanjika, Demidoji Shell, Obadoji, Shewadoji, Shewad, Dragi Bachi Metivish, Tanji Shedding Gorizoa, Kirin Donjaji Shewada, Mitun Nube, Jandanda Wadan, Dumba, Jim Bonzon, Georgi, Daji de Jandanda de Lesho. My Tibetan broke for a minute. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje Jodan Zaji Janan La, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Jini Ji Bezonanji, Drola Benji Sanje Dubar Jo, Sanje Jodan Zaji Janan La, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Jini Ji Bezonanji, Drola Benji Sanje Dubar Jo, Sanje Jodan Zaji Janan La, Janju Badu Dani Jazuji, Dagi Jini Ji Bezonanji, Okay. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to abandon all views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. And again, that's from Sachen Konga Nipo's Parting from the Four Attachments. So I'm not going to read the whole source or foundation of all good qualities tonight. I want to talk about equanimity. I want to talk about the non-biased attitude because I think it's really important. I think a lot of people are suffering right now in various ways. And I think that if we could get our minds to operate more like a bodhisattva's mind, we could still operate within the world and we could still make decisions. We could still say this is good and this is bad and make intelligence decisions based on the facts that we're perceiving. But when our mind is so corrupted with this exaggeration that we make, we aren't able to really even operate within the conventional world in a way that is beneficial to our own minds, let alone other people. Even though we think that the way that we're thinking and what we're so firm about is going to be the best way to be, it actually disturbs our minds so much. And then we disturb others' minds so much. And we engage in so much divisive speech out of it. And that's the real problem, because that's like right in the foundational parts that Buddha came to teach us about our mouths, saying things that make people who are incompatible more incompatible, saying things that make people compatible less compatible. So I'm not saying that, hey, this is all such easy stuff and what are you all doing? I'm saying, hey, this is really hard stuff the Buddha came to teach us, right in the foundational practices of the small scope. The Buddha said, hey, don't talk in a way that's going to make people less compatible. So we have to see if we have a biased attitude or not, because there's times we have to talk about others in order to make decisions. But are we coming about it from a place of caring that starts there? Or are we just mad? So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And like Shanti Deva says, that we say we want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. We want all beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. We make these statements as Buddhists all the time. But then when somebody gets some happiness in a way we don't like they got the happiness, we're mad. But you said you want beings to have happiness. So Shanti Deva says you can't even be happy for beings who get like a little taste of mundane happiness. A little taste of it. If you disagree with them or something, I don't mean somebody who's killing people because they love it. I mean just the mundane people who do things we disagree with, and then they're really happy. They're having a little mundane happiness. Why can't we just separate that out and say, oh, there's a sentient being who's having happiness. I'm saying I want all sentient beings to have happiness. Just the kind of happiness I think is happiness. This is what we need to really check. I want all sentient beings to have happiness. Well, the kind of happiness I think is happiness. The things that they think is, oh, those poor deers. They don't think the way I think. Really, our conceptuality gets us into trouble. Dharmakirti figured that out right in the Pramana Vartika Karika. There's self, There first is grasping itself, then there's grasping at other. Then this bifurcation causes attachment and aversion and all the problems in cyclic existence. So we're going to read from The Essence of Refined Gold by the third Dalai Lama with the current Dalai Lama's commentary on it. Great section on equanimity. And it's the lead up to the 7-point cause and effect instruction for getting the mind that aspires to enlightenment that we know was passed down in the extensive deeds lineage from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya, then to Master Asanga, and then it ends up in our laps. But there's a pre-step. The 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment is 6 causes. It's called cause and effect. 6 causes and 1 result. The 6 causes are recognizing sentient beings are your mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, and then altruism, or the extraordinary attitude. Those are the 6 causes for the result of bodhicitta, the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The only thing we're saying that is the entrance into the Mahayana. We say, I'm a Mahayanist. Are you a bodhisattva? The only entrance into the Mahayana is bodhicitta. 6 causes the result of bodhicitta. Now, the masters say that you need a pre-step. You need to develop a non-biased attitude, impartiality. You have to be able to equally be willing to benefit every single sentient being, to be able to then do these meditations. You have to have an open mind, a willingness, this openness, to be able to then say, the person I distaste was my mother, is my mother, is. If you look at it in terms of a continuum, a lot of debates go on, but is in terms of a continuum. Something done last week was. It was something that was part of my experiences. Something done last life was part of my experience. My mother in my last life was my mother. I am just imputed in dependence upon among the 4 or 5 aggregates to serve as a basis of designation. My mother, who's I, Jeff. At this moment, being designated, but the I and the my in a different life was the same continuum, the same consciousness, being part of the basis of designation for the I. The I that's been continuous. What moves from life to life? I do. Jeff, there's the debate. There's no inherently existent I, but there's a person going from life to life, a being imputed. That being keeps going, just new imputing. I'm a goat. Goat. Imputing as goat. Really, it's such a big thing we're trying to think about. We think about our lives are so small when we think about, oh, it's just this right here, right now. But our lives have been so big. Lives have been so big. So it says our present attitude towards others. Okay. So His Holiness says the 7-point oral tradition of cause and effect is one of the most effective methods for generating the Bodhi mind. But in order to utilize it, you must first develop the smooth mind of equanimity. And Lama Tsongkhapa and Pabunka Rinpoche talk about, if you want to paint a beautiful picture or something, you'll make sure that the surface is clean and clear and smooth, that you're going to make a picture on. So your present attitudes towards others are rough and inconsistent. We regard some with affection and wish them happiness, others with indifference to their happiness and sufferings, and others we dislike and hope they come to sorrow. So think about that. Who in your life, jump to the answer in your own mind. Who do you regard with affection? Who is it? Okay. Who are you indifferent towards? Whoever that is. I don't know. They just drove by. Brrr, they drove by on a motorcycle or something. I don't know. I'm indifferent. And then who do you dislike and hope they come to sorrow? They better pay for this. Who is it? Who's on the tip of your tongue? This discriminating mind cannot meditate effectively on love, compassion, etc., without casting these into a discriminating perspective. So this discrimination, you come in contact with someone, you pay attention to them, and then you discriminate them as, oh, I just disregard them. Or, oh, I really have affection for them. Or, I hate them. And none of these attitudes are attitudes that will allow you to get bodhicitta. So they're problems. Any sense of the bodhi mind that arises will be unbalanced and easily disturbed. Therefore, as a preliminary to using the method of the 7-point oral tradition of cause and effect, we must train the mind in meditations that develop equanimity. For our own sense of well-being, so that we can feel better, so that we can have a mind that could actually do something good with. As a preliminary to all 7 of these meditations, however, one must make the mind, so this is the 3rd Dalai Lama's, prior to that, that was the 14th Dalai Lama, the current Dalai Lama's talk. Now we're getting to the 3rd Dalai Lama's, the Essence of Refined Gold's actual root text. As a preliminary to all 7 of these meditations, however, one must make the mind level by means of meditation upon equanimity for all sentient beings. If the mind sees some beings as dear, some as awful, and some as neutral, it is not sufficiently mature to be able to meditate upon all beings as having been one's own mother. If the mind has no equanimity, any love or compassion generated will be equanimity meditation. First, begin this by visualizing various neutral people, those who have neither harmed nor helped you in this life. From their side, each of them wants only happiness and does not want suffering. From your side, each of them is like a member of your family and has been your father and mother in previous lives. Think in some lives I have held them dear and have helped them, whereas in others I have held them as alien and have harmed them, or as awful and have harmed them. This is hardly correct. I should meditate now in order to generate an attitude of equanimity for all of them. Once you have meditated like this upon neutral people, then consider those who have helped you in this life and whom you therefore hold as dear, those who have harmed you in this life and whom you've consequently held as awful. Develop equanimity toward them both. Finally, generate equanimity toward all sentient beings of the 6 realms. So you see that you start with these beings that you can definitely relate to, and then you fill the rest of the beings in. And as you become more and more advanced as a bodhisattva, you'll be able to find more of these beings and where they are and actually see these different realms. I want to make sure that, let's see, this will work. Okay, I'm going to read this. I want to make sure. I also have a reading I want to do from Gen Wangchen, who was Khyentse Geshe Wandak Rinpoche's teacher, remember, was Khyentse Pema Jetsen. Khyentse Pema Jetsen used as a translator, and one of his other students was Geshe Wangchen, Gen Wangchen, who was also a teacher of Umzala Geshe Aga. He's since passed on, but an incredible meditator and has some incredible oral instruction to give about this topic. So we're going to look at that tonight as well. So I'm going to read this and that, and then we're going to see if our minds work like this and that, and if not, then at least we have something to do with our minds. Why do we like some beings, dislike others, and feel indifferent toward even others? Because of actions done or not done in this life. We like the beings who've helped and supported us, dislike those who have harmed us, who threaten our existence in any way, and feel indifferent to anyone unrelated to us who's done nothing either pleasant nor unpleasant to us. If we meditate on the people whom we dislike, the superficial nature of our reasons for disliking them become very obvious. Some merely smiled at us strangely, frowned at us, or said something against us at one time. Others happen to play an unfortunate role in our lives. On the other hand, our reasons for liking the people whom we choose as friends are usually just as silly. Most people change their emotions towards others as quickly as the weather changes. Such a mind is a cause of laughter, even by worldly conventions. how much more inappropriate is it to the spiritual path? This is all from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. The third Dalai Lama just anyway. It would be reasonable to call one person a friend, another an enemy, and a third a stranger if they had held this status throughout the billions of lives we've experienced since beginningless time. But this is not the case. All beings have been friend, relative, and even parent to us again and again. Each time they have showered us with a rainfall of kindness, protecting us from harm, and providing us with much happiness. This is in the past. As for the future, until we attain liberation or enlightenment, we shall continue to spin on the wheel of life with them, meeting with them again and again and again in relationships of friend, relative, and so forth. So we're in it. We're all in this together. And we're all acting in the ways we're acting because of our afflictions and our karma, just making us out of control acting. We're all in this together. This makes it so we start to understand each other a little more. Similarly, the people whom we like and love in this life have not always been our friends. In many previous lives, they've killed us, stolen from us, and harmed us in many ways. When we look at this section in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment on equanimity, we'll see that Lama Tsongkhapa, as he does in many cases in the later stages of the book, refers us back to the medium scope section, refers us back to the section on the 6 sufferings, the suffering of the uncertainty of cyclic existence, and says, hey, remember how bad I told you cyclic existence was in terms of uncertainty? That for instance, you might have someone that you love so much in this life, and you might also in this life really like meat. Let me give you a scenario. Then that person that you really love so much dies. Then you really love meat and that person that you love so much, because most beings are involved with the ignoble, so most beings go to the lower realms according to Aryadeva's 400 verses. Then that person that you love so much, because you haven't died in this scenario yet, is born as a cow or a pig or a lobster or a shrimp. Okay, follow the reasoning. And now you love and crave meat, and you loved and craved then, and they can't meet you in any other way than for you to eat them. Pretty disgusting when you think of eating your loved one. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, use that part that you meditated on. And if you look at the medium scope section, there's a secret right in there where Lama Tsongkhapa says, check how your mind discriminates these various types of beings. Friends, you have attachment to. Enemies, you have aversion for. He doesn't say because later on you're going to need this for equanimity practice so you can get bodhicitta. He just says, hey, why don't you check out how you discriminate? What's your mind do when you think of these beings? So now Lama Tsongkhapa said, hey, remember I told you to see what your mind does? How do you discriminate them? Remember that? Well, now think about it in terms of since beginningless time, all of these things have happened. How can you label, if it's been one continuum of a mind and one eye that you've been labeling on various different things, not an inherently existent eye, not inherently existent because it's merely designated on these different things. You've just done this over and over and over again. And you've, in this continuum, had all of these relationships, and you're stuck in this minute. You're not stuck in a time and a minute in a good way. You're stuck in it in an ignorant way. If you were stuck in this minute as a bodhisattva, your mind wouldn't feel so crappy. As for the future, until we attain enlightenment, we will continue to meet with them in life upon life. Each time, our relationships with them will dramatically change. There is nobody who has always played the same role of an ally in all of our lives, and nobody who has always played the role of an antagonist. Nor is there anyone who has always been a stranger. As the wheel of karma rolls on, the beings fulfilling these functions constantly change positions with one another. And this is the meditation. You're considering all of these, your neutral beings, and you're considering, oh, in previous life, they were my friend. Wow, why am I discarding them? And now you're like, oh, and then in a previous life, they were my enemy. Oh, wait, and you start to shake all of these things, and you start to see that you're not trying to make a neutral being a friend or an enemy, because both of those positions aren't right. They have attachment or they have hatred. You're trying to find this balanced place that isn't disregarding others. Everyone thinks this equanimity is so simple. You're trying to find a very balanced place that isn't attached, that isn't averted, doesn't have aversion, but doesn't disregard, equally wishing to benefit. This is not an easy place to get to, nor is there anyone who's, as the wheel of karma rolls on, the beings fulfilling these functions constantly change positions with one another. So powerful. When we meditate on these facts and apply the experiences of our meditations in our daily exchanges with people, not people on Mars, our daily exchanges. Exchanges don't only happen when we're talking to people. We're having an exchange when we're looking at the internet. So we have to see, oh, there's someone I really crave. There's someone I really hate. There's something happening in our mind. There's an exchange going on. We have to watch it. When we meditate on these facts and apply the experiences of our meditation, our daily exchanges with people, the smooth mind that looks on all beings with equanimity is quickly generated. And this lays the foundation for actual practice of the 7-point cause and effect meditation technique. And this last thing I do want to read, I won't be able to read the whole section. The practice of bodhicitta. So Lord Atisha says, and this is from Gen Wanchen's Awakening the Mind, Geshe Namgyel Wanchen. The practice of bodhicitta, this is from Lord Atisha. The practice of bodhicitta is nothing but letting go of the feeling of indifference towards others and maintaining a sincere and loving mind towards all, whoever we meet, see, or live with. Wow, whoever we meet, see, every being you see or live with. The foundation for developing such a loving mind is equanimity. At present, we often feel resentment towards those who cause us trouble, or we dislike people for some reason. We feel attached to those who benefit us at the moment, or whom we like for some reason. We have no particular feelings for those who do not benefit us or whom we neither like or dislike. There's no doubt that when we gain a loving attitude towards others equally, whether they trouble us, help us, or do neither, we ourselves can always remain happy. So the Buddha came to tell us how to be happy, not how to be just be a good citizen. No, the Buddha's telling us this is how you can become happy. That when you gain this equal loving attitude, that's how you can be happy. Not to mention how you'll be able to actually help others, it says. And then the Kadampa Lama Arme Rinchen said, now I'm very happy because of my little experience. Now I'm very happy because of my little experience of loving kindness towards other beings. This little experience is due to the kindness of those beings who trouble or harm me. I must feel grateful towards them and regard them as my teachers. You're teaching me when I'm feeling an aversion or feeling like, oh, this person, they're teaching me that I have a self-cherishing attitude, that I don't cherish others more than myself. I have something that's causing aversion in my mind. And aversion isn't a strength place. Anger is not a place of strength. Peace is a place from which strength comes from. A stable mind, not an angry mind. Most of the unhappiness that we experience in our daily lives is due to our lack of equanimity towards others. Thus, in the practice of developing bodhicitta, we are first led to the meditation on developing equanimity. Since beginningless time, our minds have been fooled by the temptation of being attached to those we like and feeling hatred towards those we dislike. As a result of these negative states of mind, not only do we cause endless suffering to others, but we also bring endless unhappiness to ourselves. Most of the unhappiness that we experience in daily life arises from these negative states of mind. So the biased attitude causes most of the unhappiness in our life. Is it true or not? Think about it. Those who at present temporarily hold a hostile attitude towards us have been our beloved mother, father, friend, brother, sister, countless times, the Buddha said. Those who benefit us now have also been our bitter enemy. Therefore, we must cast away any kind of resentment towards those who harm us, cast away attachment to those we like, and thus extend a loving mind towards all beings equally. 2 more paragraphs. If we examine this closely, those whom we regard as our enemy have been our dear mother and friend countless times. And the amount of tears we have wept when we were separated from them then would be much greater than the deepest ocean on the earth if they remained. Likewise, those whom we are attached to and cannot bear to be separated from, even for a while, have been our bitter enemy countless times. If our own corpses, which our present friends killed when they were our enemies in past lives, were piled up, the heap would be much greater than the highest mountain, Mount Meru. There's no certainty about our relationship with others. Friends become enemies. Enemies often change to become friends. If we look closely to check up on why we feel resentment towards those we regard as our enemy, the only reason is because they harm us or cause us trouble. When they cause us trouble, their minds are completely overpowered by delusion. Here's your responsibility. In the same way, when they are overpowered by negative thoughts, they harm others or even kill themselves. So if we are wise, we will realize that it would be more appropriate to feel compassion for them instead of hatred, to help them free their minds from the influence of negative thought. Since beginningless time, we have harbored resentments towards anyone who caused us trouble and have become attached to those who have benefited us. What have we gained from this? We have accumulated nothing but immeasurable non-virtuous karma, and as a result, we have been born in the worst of hells again and again and again. Wow. We'll pick that back up next time. It's so powerful. If I examine why I hate those who cause me trouble, I will realize that it's because I think they cause me suffering. This thought is actually based on a totally false view. How can I rely on it? Whatever suffering I experience is not the creation of my fellow beings, but is the manifestation of my non-virtuous karma. Why should I therefore feel hatred towards them? I should feel pity for them instead, because they are powerlessly governed by the force of my own non-virtuous karma. That's a tough one to swallow. Thank you so much, everybody, for your kind listening. This information is not easy. Developing these kind of minds goes against the grain. The ordinary world, Lama Tsongkhapa said, couldn't even comprehend the idea of being unbiased. Couldn't even come to the idea that that would make any sense whatsoever. This is how we get ahead. Us, them. This is how the world works. So ordinary beings don't even comprehend these kinds of things that we're talking about, let alone emptiness of inherent existence. This idea that everybody's equally important is like groundbreaking for sentient beings. And it's not even comprehended by them. But then when we use logic and reasoning, we see that it's the only thing that makes sense if we want to be happy. And that's all we say we want to do. We say that, you know, all we've ever wanted was happiness. And what's the meaning of life? To be happy. Oh, if you could never suffer, would that be great? Of course, we all agree with that. So let's do it. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by the Vajrasattva mantra. Thank you, everybody, for your patience when the power cut or whatever happened, internet, and may they be purified by this mantra. Om benza sadhu samaya manipulaya benza sadhu seno bhajista dil me baba. Sutakaya me baba, subukaya me baba, anurakta me baba, savasiti me bracha, savakama sucha me. Kidam Shem Kuruhum Ha Bhagavan Savatatagata Benza Mame Moka Benza Bava Maha Samaya Safa Ahum Vade. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo. Jorama 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 Jijikala Rajamo Ramo Chidachi Chunjo. I really hope that you try these meditations, that you do them, you think of them. And even if it's contrived, just run through them on a daily basis. Even if it's a couple minutes, run through friends, enemies, and neutrals, equanimity, 7-point cause and effect. Run through them, even if it's just like in a like running meditation. Go through the different stages and acquaint your mind with it. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised the supreme, by all the conquerors to traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you remain until samsara's end. If only all the leaders of the world could be like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. All these wars going on and all this division going on, we could all like just start as a group. If we were being led by leaders like His Holiness, we could all start as a group moving towards the goals that we actually want. We all just want to be happy. We all want to be free from suffering, and division, anger, these are the things that just perpetuate our samsara. So we just have, in this world that we're in, we have His Holiness the Dalai Lama here to kind of soothe us and be an example of, yes, there is a being who has done all of these things and has a mind and looks to be kind of have the composure I would like to have. In the pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end again. And now we'll do the complex yogi poses as a simple monk, prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, my root lama, many of your root lama. And yeah, a complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a teacher, a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atishu came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of such as beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world, take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope this has been beneficial, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much.
It was certainly very fitting for this week's topic.
I thought it might be. Take care.
Right on.